Good evening, welcome back. Happy to see so many faces here again, despite the beautiful weather. I hope you all had a great day. I will start, as I told you last time, with a round of feedback from last week. It's a retrieval session of what we listened to last week. There was me, basically, again.
Das Mikrofon, das zeigt völlig in die falsche Richtung. So, warte mal, so viel kann.
Jetzt hast du, glaube ich, was.
Ja, jetzt.
Ja? Okay, so retrieval. Rethinking, 2 weeks ago, we were sitting here as well, and you sent in a lot of feedbacks and reflections that were very inspiring. Thank you very much for that. And I was very happy to see that many of you expressed that they felt somehow motivated, inspired by last week's introductory lecture. That was the whole point. And this obviously also means a lot to me, because that's very much why I'm doing what I'm doing. I made these little clusters from your feedback, and I will only mention first names, so no worries, but maybe you recognize yourself. So Alma described last session as sitting somewhere without the pressure in a casual atmosphere that felt like a safe space for all kinds of questions, struggles, and ideas. Yes, please, this is what this place, this space is supposed to be. And Cristiano took away a very energetic, understanding, direct, and empowering feeling. Yes, sir. And thank you, Anna, for sharing that simple question. Why do you do what you do? Why do you study what you study? As well as the answers of the other students in the room made you think and rethink your motivation. And as Marvin observed, and again, dude, I'm not going to mention all of you. There's too many. I'm just picking a few. And if you're not mentioned, don't worry. I read everything, but I can't read out everyone. So as Marvin observed, I hope you all understand that I don't want anyone to feel forced to do something what I want you to do. I mean, referring to me, but rather that I'm trying to help you to achieve something that you want to do. In Jafari, I'm very happy to hear that you feel ensured that you're on the right path. And great to have you back on board the semester, Lea Margareta. And you too, Leopold. I was very excited to read that last semester's talks had such a positive impact on you and even influenced your uni work. And yes, Moritz, this one is going to be different than the others, for sure. So if you recognize yourself, that's great. Regarding the music, maybe you already noticed. Some of you, Azaria was not so convinced with the musical intermezzi that we had here, but actually got a couple of recommendations that you heard just playing when you came in. So Hannah proposed Duval Timothy, San Am from the album What's Up. No, sorry, San Am is the album, What's Up was the song that we heard. And Julius suggested the song Iron Lung from Black Marble. So I started a Spotify mix where we'll add the songs. So maybe you will send more, and then I'll just let them play in the first 15 minutes when you come into the room. Yes, other feedback. Yeah, thank you for starting your Hans-Ulrich Obrist-inspired visual and digital garden to collect ideas, concepts, sounds, and everything else, Pirl. I love the illustration, Christian Pascal. Clemens, the Cutter Poetry Slam text, Love Now, Judge Later. A beautiful abstract black and white print art piece by David Leon, a typographical collage on top of a kind of demolition site by Lorenz. A collage with all the upcoming speakers on stage of what looked like an old chapel, including Burning Fires by Esther. And again, I'm not mentioning all of you. And these are just a few. And on a personal note, Cosima, thank you for your honest sharing of your thoughts and internal conflicts and your philosophical thoughts of epistemological nature. Congratulations for having started. Sefta, thank you for your critical stream of conscious and cynical brainstorming. I want to read more of that. And as a reply to Greta, don't push back the doubts and fuck optimization. Try to embrace your complexity. It's what makes you beautiful. And happy that you could relate to the scavenger mythology, Rami, and yes, in gender studies, colonial and queer studies, it is of particular importance. Exactly in these contexts that this mythology grew. Actually, I don't know if you remember scavenger methodology, Halberstam last week. And I came across this methodology by reading another book while I was running a master program at the Sandberg Institute in Amsterdam by Gloria Wecker. And the book is called White Innocence. And it's an incredible book that I recommend all of you. She's one of the few, or if not the only, queer person of color in the Netherlands that has a professorship for sociology. And she reflects in White Innocence of like this kind of internalized racism within a European country, the Netherlands. It's particular there, but it's also not particular. You can very much relate also from a German perspective. It was definitely a game changer for me. So Gloria Wecker, White Innocence. And Daniel, thank you for your deep and precise reflection triggered by the Levi-Strauss quote of art living halfway between scientific knowledge and mythical thought. I like your thought, and that's not that it's not a point in between, but rather a continuous movement or moment and fluctuation between both, symbiosis of sort. And P.S. I also loved your MacGyver reference with regards to Levi-Strauss bricoleur. And quotes, yes, I dropped a lot of quotes from the speakers, but you gave me even more quotes. There was a great Picasso quote, actually also from Daniel, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. So learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. And Aisha, with a powerful quote by Virgil Abloh, once you learn the ethos of what you love and dig deeper, then you're able to turn the wheel left or right. Courses, Dimitro mentioned a class on copy culture. It's very interesting. I couldn't find it. Dimitro, are you here today? I'd love to learn more about the copy cultures class. Is it on this semester? Last semester. Ah, okay. So maybe you can share that. And then also Xu Chen, thanks for the tip of the lecture series, ziemlich große Vorlesung. I think that was also last semester, but it looked like great topics there. And then, last but not least, regarding the community, Janne and Christine, I was thrilled to read that I was able to bring across that I understand the UDK is kind of a big community with a very huge potential that we are all part of, and that I really want to try to activate this potential here. And that one day you will maybe work together with someone sitting next to you on the row behind you. On the same topic, Astrid wrote in a very humorous dialogical scene, I don't know if Astrid is here, which I will quote now. So you have to imagine, I think, three figures. One is saying, so this is where all the cool people study art. You never seen them in a seminar. And the other person replies, yeah, I hope to get to know some of them here. And the next, it's her, is laughing and says, yes, I hope so too, but it's only a lecture. How can we talk to one another? And then the next person answers, I'm sure they're all up for a beer after. So here's an assignment for you, an unofficial assignment. I would like to ask each one of you today, when we maybe take a break, to approach someone here today, someone that you don't know, someone that you haven't worked with, that's maybe in a different class, and just say hello, or I don't know, exchange numbers or whatever it is, but approach someone that you don't know that's in this space today, okay? So maybe over the course of the semester we can somehow create this thing. So let's try to make this a ritual. Technically speaking, Petra told me that I stand in front of the projection, like right now, yes, but I asked my technical team, this is actually on purpose. This is their artistic direction, so this is like kind of the collage that's happening, and I'm being lit, so they don't need an extra light. And Niels Ruben, your PDF was corrupted, so please resend. Any questions? Good. And again, thank you all for sending in your feedback. I can't obviously mention all of you, but just to give you an idea. So now we come to the Fisher part. Welcome back to Juxtaposition, this kind of bi-weekly public lecture series as part of the Studium Generale at the Berlin University of the Arts. My name is Lukas Feireiss, as you know, and as a visiting professor, it is my deliberate aim to establish new liaisons, new connections between diverging fields of expertise and knowledge here at the school and beyond. And today, I'm very excited to have My Nguyen with us. Chami is a graduate, actually, of the Berlin University of Arts in 2019, so 3 to 4 years ago now, where you studied fashion and textile design. Born 1992 in Vietnam, Chami is a Berlin-based visual artist and designer. I had the pleasure of working with you last summer, actually about a year ago. I think it was almost in May or June of last year, and was able to invite you on another occasion as well to more briefly speak about your work. You work with video installations, with sculpture and with textile. Your work draws upon intersectional feminist and Vietnamese diaspora perspectives, dealing with how we use commodities, images, and garments to externalize and construct our identities. You have exhibited in many places, in the Bundeskunsthalle in Bonn, at the Positions Art Fair in Berlin, the Art Foundation of the State of Saxony-Anhalt in Halle, and the Human Resources in Los Angeles. Trami, the stage is yours. Thank you for being here. And a warm applause, please.
Hi, is my microphone working?
Yes, perfectly working.
Okay. Hi, all. I'm Chami, and thank you, Lukas, for inviting me to have this opportunity to present to you some of my works. As Lukas mentioned, I had my master's diploma in fashion design in 2019. So this is an image of my my master's presentation here at Queer Gallery. And so before I start with my presentation, I will explain to you my my structure of the presentation. So I will start with the earlier works, which is more focused on fashion design, and then also will go further to describe the transitioning towards more visual arts practices like sculpture, textile, and video installation. And then lastly, I will talk about my collaborative approach, which is really important for my interdisciplinary approach. And yeah, so I will start with this work of my graduation work, and it's called Using One's Feet Has Become an Option of Last Resort. Yes, it's a long name. And it represents pretty much my practice as it consists of 3-channel video installation, textile sculptures, and fashion collection. And so the work, the starting point of the work is the motorbike culture in Vietnam, and I was always drawn to the motorbike culture in Vietnam because I think I was growing up in Vietnam, and so I moved to Germany when I was 7, and then was the fondest memories I had while being in Vietnam when I was a child was the motorbike rides I had with my relatives, and I immersed myself while on the bike the city life of Hanoi, and I think it's kind of way of reconnecting my identity as a second-generation immigrant and mostly growing up in Germany. So I think this is the way of trying to reconnect with my identity, trying to work with, try and incorporate my artistic practice with my personal life. So therefore, I was definitely started to work on the motorbike culture back in 2018, and I went to Vietnam, and immediately I was recognizing the women on the motorbike wearing the fully covered garments, and they are also wearing like gloves and hats and face masks before the pandemic. So it was like a really visibly like strong image on the streets, like women riding bikes in those garments, and I really wanted to know like who are these women and why are they wearing it, and also what's the meaning behind those garments. And I was going to Vietnam and wanted to research more about it. And while researching about it, it's really opens up this emerging street style, I would call it, the discourses of race, class, and gender in Vietnam, because it tackles also the colorism in Vietnam, because the main part of the woman wearing those garments is mainly to protect their skin from getting tanned, and so therefore I think it's a really popular beauty standard in Asia, or also in Southeast Asia, that women want to, like, the lighter your skin is, the more higher social class you represent. So that's why this beauty standards is even more important for women, I guess, because it's like their body is their capital and they have to represent this beauty standard. And I really wanted to take this garment and try to gather all the garments and take deconstruct the meaning behind it, and also reimagining the garments and abstract it in a way of, and I tried to, so this is an image of the process behind the making of the textile sculptures. In the end, I gathered the garments and wrapped it over the motorbike and tried to abstract and appropriate the form of the motorbike, to abstract the functionality of the garments, and also applied textile manipulation techniques like bleaching and applying silicone and starch, and yeah, in the end there's a series of textile sculptures which this is like one part of the project, and this is kind of a way of reimagining the woman, or like the future, in a speculative way, like how can like a garment can be. And therefore, like the second part of the speculative narrative I wanted to create is the I would call it the speculative fashion collection, because I took the textile sculptures and wanted to because the first instance I was appropriating, like taking the garments which is for the body and took it and put it over the motorbike, and I wanted to put it back onto the body and to see how the context is changing, and I called it a speculative fashion collection, because it's not in the classical sense of fashion designing, of drawing it, then making pattern cuttings and then produce the garment, but more of taking the sculpture and use it as a wearable sculpture. And it's not fixed in the sense of how you wear it, and therefore I think it's a good, I would call it wearables. And here's some of the editorial I created, and with this wearable sculptures, I also created sunglasses, and also like laser cutted metal pieces, which also resembles the motorbike stickers, and also silicone bodysuits. And I think this. Okay, and also with the speculation of the one part of the speculation is the fashion collection, and the other part I wanted to create a video and moving image medium for speculation, because I find it a really like fitted medium to create a like science fiction, or like a future, like imaginative future. So I will present to you this video work, and it's about 4.5 minutes long. Yes, and so here's enjoy. It's with sound, I think. Okay, I will going to my next fashion design project. This work is a little bit older. It's from 2017. It's called Loca, and the main pieces for the collection are oversized, large bag sculptures, and they function as they function as a sculpture and also as a garment. And I created. What's important for me is also this. This work is also is presented as a 360-degree editorial, which I will show you now. It's a really short video. Yes. So it's a web-based interactive editorial, and I wanted to also. It was also important for me to also use digital medium for fashion presentation, or how you can also showcase a fashion collection. And then with this work, I also took the bag sculptures and presented or exhibited in the exhibition space. And I find it also really interesting to take the garment which is for the body and put it in a spatial context, and to see how the meanings or the meaning of a garment can change, or how can, and I find it really like a big contrast in this bag as like in a pretty wide room, and then contrast with the last image of with a style, always like really styled with a human, and it's also the same with this sculpture, which is also the silicone bodysuit I showed you from. It's from the first project I showed you, and it's also the same. So before you saw this silicone bodysuits with a body, and now you see it without the body, and how it transitions and abstract the way how we see a garment can be. And also, of course, you can see the human body, but it's also looks like an alienating, it's more depersonalized, or like an alien entity. This work was exhibited as a series at Galerie Tanja Wagner in last month, and I also liked it when it's put it as one piece or as a series. It's also changed. And with the silicone and textile work, I also further explored last year, creating textile pieces out of lace fabric scraps I had, and also applied collaging and applying silicone techniques. And it was a really fun way of using the scraps of garments, of textiles, and creating textile, or like mixing it with also metal and strass chains. And with this work, I also did the same technique of collaging, using old scraps of material and creating textile work. And I really want to further explore this kind of collaging and remixing techniques. This work is from 2018, which was shown at Human Resources in Los Angeles, and it was my first experimentation with video installation and video work. So it was like one of my first trial to do moving images, and so I also explored the motorbike culture in Vietnam. So I did a video which was, I explored the motorbike culture and also explored it from the Western standpoint, how it's perceived, like the images of the overstocked motorbike, and how it's how the meaning behind it for the locals, for the Vietnamese people, as it's a meaning of freedom for many people, and it's also like a community which is really important for everyday lives. Then I to my next project with projects which is more collaborative works I will show you now. And this work is booths of, I try to create a booth and wanted to also incorporate videos. And then I worked with a ceramic artist, Janus Essebrücke, and we wanted to create an accessory for a shoe which you can also hold the phone, and then this is what we came up. This was exhibited at Bundeskunsthalle in Bonn, the exhibition called Dress Code, Are You Playing Fashion? And the next work is a collaborative costume design work. I did the costumes for the Water Worms, which was shown at Hau Berlin and at ITFA Festival in Amsterdam. This project combines VR and live performances. So it was really interesting for me to create in real life costumes, but also the digitalized version of my costumes. So what they did was had real life human performances, and they scanned the performers and create avatars. And this is also like the digitalized or like the 3D version of the performers and costumes. So this work is a sculptural video installation, which was also shown at Galerie Tanja Wagner. It's also a collaborative work. I created a layering of different medium, such as metal. Then behind it is a video work with video screens. And I worked here together with an nail artist, and Camilla Volbert. She created the acrylic nails extensions, as you can see here. I had really a lot of fun working with this because it's a I can really use. I use also digital prints for the nail art, and so this work is also about the labor behind the post-human cyborg, and most of the labor behind the creating your phone or like the technological devices you have is also made from migrant women in Silicon Valley, and I find it also a good representation of doing also acrylic nail, because nail art is also made mostly from migrant women I think in US and also here in Germany. So that's why I decided to use this medium. And then lastly, this is the work I'm working on right now, and it's the biggest collaborative work I've had so far. So I will create with 2 other artists do work for the State of Fashion Biennale in Arnhem, and it will open next month. And it was I didn't know the collaborators because the curators decided on the participants. So it was a really challenging or scary thing to do because you don't know the people, and it will be like a really big exhibition. But I'm really glad about the results, and really excited about the co-creation process. And and you can also follow my work then online or something, because it's still like will be open next month. And yeah, this is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Trami. How do you guys feel? Do you want like a 5-minute break and then we enter into Q&A? Yeah, no? So the following, I'll play a song. When the song is over, we come back into the room. Okay? And you know the song.
Hey, ring the alarm. Hey, whoa. Ring the alarm. Another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, ring the alarm. Another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, some sound like a big jump on. Listen the sound, it's a champion. From the dance in any session. Rock up the woman and rock up the man. Ring the alarm. Another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, ring the alarm. Another sound is dying. Whoa, hey. Tato, we beat them all in a row. Donkey want water, but you hold him Joe. Tato, we beat them all in a row. The cost want water, but hold him Joe. Ring the alarm, another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, ring the alarm, another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, 4 big sound in a 1 big lawn. The dance sound I play, the other 3 keep calm. 4 big sound in a 1 big lawn. The boom sound I play, the other 3 keep calm. Ring the alarm, another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, remember this sound, it's a talk of the town, talk of the country. Hey, rock Mr. Charlie, rock Miss Munchie, talk of the country. So, ring the alarm, another sound is dying. I know, ring the alarm. Another sound is suffering. Whoa, hey. Watch the sound man a timber. Watch the sound man a pray. Watch the sound man a timber. Watch the sound man a pray. Ring the alarm. Another sound is dying. I know. Ring the alarm. Another sound is suffering. Whoa, hey. A little of this and a little of that. Rock sister come and rock sister Pat. Rock the white and rock up the black. Sweet reggae music gone on the attack, yes. On the attack it gone on the attack. Sweet reggae music gone straight non-stop. Ring the alarm, another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, ring the alarm, another sound is suffering. Whoa, hey, some sound like a big jump on. Listen to this sound, it's a champion. Around the dance in any session. Rock the woman and move up the man. Ring the alarm, another sound is suffering. Whoa, hey, ring the alarm, another sound is dying. Whoa, hey, we beat them here and we beat them there. We beat them all over this atmosphere. Champion sound.
Sind wir die ganze Zeit live, ja, ne?
Mademoiselle.
Will be more coming in, and some escaped already into the sunlight, and that's fair enough. Yeah, this is the moment where you have the chance to ask questions to Charmy. They can be very banal. As I said last time, there is no such thing as a stupid question. I will repeat this as a mantra over and over again. If you already have a question, either raise your hand or step to the mic. But I could start by just breaking the ice a little bit. Is there already a first question? Okay, then I'll start to break the ice, but do get ready for a question. And I have a bit of an echo here with the sound. I'm always, Charmy, I'm always very interested, and you can already show your work. It's based heavily on collage or collage practices, but I'm always very curious really on how people really do what they're doing, what their methodology is. Could you kind of share with us a little bit, like really how you start working? Does it start by cutting the textiles? Do you first do a very long research phase? Is it sketches? What mediums do you use in the pre-production before it enters the production?
So it really depends on the work. So the project with the work with the sun protective clothing is really research-based and more like a bigger project. Then I definitely start with the research. I started with gathering the materials, and what is important for me is, because coming from fashion design, it's a really methodologically technical practice, because you need to sketch it, you need to pattern cut it, and you need to sew it. So you need a lot of skills. And what I do is I try to collage the textiles or the garments in a more faster way, in the sense that I don't sew them together. I will put them together and apply silicone for gluing them together. So the collection the speculative fashion collection is also not sewn. It's all glued together, as say, by silicone. So this is I really need to have, in a sense, the research thing can be a little bit longer, but then the applying or the collaging needs to be quick, because I don't want to always like put them together and then sew them together and then go back and forth. I really need to have like the really quick applying and glue them together.
And then obviously, I guess I'm picking up a question that most of you maybe have, but you studied fashion design here, yet you entered somewhere totally different. When did this change, or when did you start drifting more into the fine arts and the sculptural work, or was that clear from the beginning?
I think so. The Ex Loca, like the interactive with the back collection, was already like my bachelor's collection, and you already see it's really important for me to have like a using a lot of voluminous form. So it was already there. I think that I like to have like a sculptural garments, and then I also with my masters I wanted to push further my practice, and I really wanted to create multidisciplinary practice, and how fashion can be a multidisciplinary practice in a sense. And I was like, I think starting from like my master's project, I wanted to, because like right now, most of the, like a lot of fashion students also say like, oh, they are tired of like the runway, they are tired of the same thing again. And I think with the whole class, it was also not only me, but my whole class, we did the exhibition instead of like the normal like runway. And this is how we got pushed towards more fine arts, I think.
How many fashion students are amongst you guys? Raise your hand. I remember you. Only one fashion student in here now? Okay. Well, you you present a lot. So, questions from you guys. And don't be shy. Like, yes, great. I really appreciate it. Very cool that you're asking a question.
So thanks for sharing the work. Maybe on the process of doing your work in collaboration. So you mentioned a lot of work that was collaborative, and I wondered, probably you worked like in collaborations in uni too. How did the mode of collaboration change for you? Did it stay the same, or do you do things differently? Because probably you like learn from each project. Did you encounter certain, I don't know, strategies that work out good, you know, and sort of, I don't know, finding a middle ground with your partners? And yeah, because you know why? Because I think like there's so much talent and so many amazing thoughts in your work. I wonder like how do you communicate this with other people without, you know, losing all that? And at the same time, of course, you can never just do your thing in a collaborative.
I will just repeat the question for the online audience because they might not hear you sound-wise. Very simply speaking, he asked about your collaborative process. How do you do collaborations more in detail, and how can you collaborate without losing the content of your own work? In simple terms.
I showed you two collaborative works, which was mostly stemming from my own, I think for the Bundeskunsthalle it was commissioned, and I asked ceramic artists and we come up together. So my main, like the collaborative thing was my motivation, and I set up the context, I guess. So I set up like, hey, I had this idea and this, and how can we create something together. So I think it also needs to have some kind of boundaries. Like it's not like always easy. Of course, it's always nice to hear people say like collaborative work, but in a practical sense, it's always like needs somebody you have like kind of putting in context or like putting like boundaries. But with the work I will show at the State of Fashion Biennale, it's totally different because I don't know the people and each one, so I'm from fine arts and the two other are from textile design and from photography, and we don't know each other, and it was in a level, the boundaries was not set by me but by the curators, so this totally shifted, and I was also like a little bit scared, maybe it won't work out, but I had a really pleasure, like a really great time, and it was like remote working together. So I just could meet them on Zoom, and then we met last month, and each of us create one work, but each one could create their medium within this work. So I think it's also important to set up like, hey, you can do whatever you want in your medium, in your field, but let's bring this all together. So this is how we come up together, I guess. I hope this answers your question. Yeah, okay.
Cool. Another question from you guys. Yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I was going to ask you like a similar question, but I'm wondering how would you cope with, for example, a virtual reality environment if you don't have technical knowledge or some kind of things?
So I was in charge of the costume design, so it was a big team of doing the VR work. So I was doing so the thing was, I was creating the costumes and I created the costume with the silicone. And I don't have any knowledge of 3D scanning. And then after doing this, I totally I talked to people and then we figure out like, hey, silicone doesn't work on 3D scan because it's like mirroring. And so I figured out it later. Of course, then I learned from the mistakes again, but it's not a mistake, it's just like learning by doing. And this is why I find it also interesting to see how digitalized version is not the same. It's not like photographed. And so I have to really see how this like 3D scanning is also not only, like it's a new field to me to explore further, I think. So yeah.
Actually, I would like to add a question to this one, but what do you learn from this kind of bleed space between virtual and physical and digital and analog? Because it reappears in a couple of your projects.
What I learned, I think it's because for me, the material is really important. I really like to work with textures and with patterns, and the digitalized version is in a sense of a way of creating like balance, because I feel like in my practice I work so much with material and then there's so much stuff and so much like more materials, more storage room, more place, and I sometimes need, I mean it sounds a little bit practical, but it's in a sense I need to have a break from my practice, and digital or video making is a way of like getting a break, and also it's fun way because you always have to work with people. You always have to, when you do film, you have to work with the camera person, with sound, so it's a way of more working in a like collaborative field. So for balancing out my, I don't know, like my crafts, and then with like, yeah, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another question for you guys. Yes, there's two actually. If he raised first and then you come next. If it's so far, maybe you actually, if you don't mind, if you could come to the microphone, that would be amazing, since you, yeah. Spotlight on. No shame in the game, guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Firstly, I think it's very interesting for me. Like I noticed that many fashion designers they started their projects or get inspired. Firstly. By some social problems or issues or phenomenon, but mostly for the market or the consumers, they buy some items just because they think they are beautiful, but they don't think about the meaning behind it. What do you think about this, or what might be a way to solve these problems from your perspective as a fashion designer?
Thank you. Great question.
So I think this is why the reason I went to fine arts, because I don't want to deal with this question, because it's really hard for a fashion designer to balance the this whole like, okay, you have to create something that the consumer wants, and then also with but also create something that is meaningful and personal. So I think I don't have the right answer, because we're living in a capitalistic world, and I think it's really hard to challenging this, and I really admire the people trying to balance it out. But for me, it's I try to work with fashion as a socio-political mirror of our world, but mostly in the sense that I take for example, the street style and then research about it, but I don't do like garments in the end or like products in the end. So it's yeah, this is my way of figuring this out, but it's like hard question, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be actually great with a mic.
I guess I had, first off, thank you so much for your presentation. I thought it was really, really interesting, especially all the intersections between fashion and fine arts. I wanted to ask just more of a technical question. This 4-minute long video with the inverted, how did you achieve this? Like how did you layer everything, and how did you even film it? Like were you on a motorcycle or?
So I had so it was made with a 360-degree camera, and I filmed it on a motorbike. So that's why the camera was like, I was able to decide on the camera movements, and also I'm not a videographer or editor, so I had also a team of people working with this project. Yeah.
It almost seemed like a game environment.
Yeah,
no?
exactly.
Like sometimes it wasn't sure if you looked at a rendered image or actually just an introverted.
Yeah. So it kind of recreates augmented reality, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you for your presentation again. I was really interested in your work with the garments and the motorcycles. And I was wondering if you would like to show that work, for example, in Vietnam, and what do you think? How do you think people would react to it?
Yeah, I repeat the question quickly. Yeah. So you were asked what do you think the reaction would be if you would show your piece about the motorcycle culture in Vietnam, or maybe you have even shown it there.
And if you would like to show it,
Yeah, I definitely wanted to show it if there's an opportunity. I haven't yet, but I really want to show it because I thought at first, in first instance, I thought to myself, oh, maybe it's just like a trend or something because it's a fashion thing. But then I also asked my relatives again, and they also told me like, no, it's still there. Like people are still wearing it, and that's the reason I really want to show it to the visitors and see the reaction to it, because I'm not sure how they would react, because it's also like a really polarizing garment in Vietnam, because it's also like the women wearing it also get, of course, made fun of, that they cannot see anything because they are so fully covered, and so it's like also like really sexist connotation to it, because in a sense they are like trying to uphold this beauty standard, and then like there's also like this negative thing, and I don't want to create this like, okay, this garment is really bad, and then that's the reason I want to deconstruct it, but I wanted to reimagine how can it be in a different context. So this is also for me next. Maybe I add one on, speaking of context in Vietnam. I was wondering, we kind of asked this question quite often last semester on the notion of situated knowledges. That's a concept by Donna Haraway. It basically says that any perception of anything is always a matter of a personified, located subject, in this case you. So I was wondering, in how far do you think you were born in Vietnam, I don't know at what age you came back, but in how far these different places and spaces have left an imprint on the way you kind of work and the way you perceive the world? Can you maybe Okay, simply speaking, sounded also theoretical, but very simply speaking, growing up in Vietnam, then in Germany, two different worlds, and how far do they influence your practice, your work, or your like personal understanding and perception of the world? So I think it was like I had my bachelor's and I really didn't like try to make fashion from my identity, or I was like really more of like trying to create something like visually or like technically interesting. So I tried to recreate like voluminous garments, and then I didn't have really the courage to do it because I felt so vulnerable to mixing fashion design and my identity and my personal life. So it was like, I think when I grew up older, I think I got the courage to do so, and I think it really showed me the way how I perceive the world, and it's kind of like my practice is kind of the reconnection, as I said in the presentation, of my identity, because I feel so distant myself from it. Because I only like visit Vietnam like every 5 years, and also like I of course can speak a little bit Vietnamese, but it's also lost in times, and it's a kind of way for me personally. So, and I think it's also nice to have to share, be able to share it with people, but it's mostly the motivation is for myself, doing my work for myself.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
And another question from you. Yes, great. And I thank you so much for all the people asking questions. Really cool. And you know, we'll get to it, but it's fantastic already. Thank you. Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a question about the appropriation that you mentioned about the textile sculptures. So the first one, what actually, can you elaborate on this, what you meant there? And the second one, how far does it go? But I will ask this question again. Like I will try to elaborate on this question. So the first one, what did you mean on appropriation with the textile sculptures?
So appropriation, I mean this by the garments has the function of the human body, and it's made by humans, and it will be worn by humans with a human body. And I wanted to appropriate the commodity form of a commodity and try to abstract the functionality of a garment, and so therefore, in a really wider sense, appropriate the form of the motorbike, to abstract it and to like don't put the garment more into the body. So this is maybe, I don't know, like if it's questioning like the appropriation, but it's. I created a sculpture with the form of the motorbike. Of course, you cannot see the motorbike, but it's a little bit of the shape, and you can see a little bit of the details that it's a garment, but it's somehow so deconstructed because of the bleaching and the dissolving of the patterns. So yeah, this. And your second, did you have the question?
And the second question was about how far it goes. So you followed with gender binarities, and there was an idea that women are like associated with home, men are associated with not home. So can we go further and say that basically we have this mobile-immobile idea? Yeah, so women are immobile, men are more mobile, and does it go even further to the objectification of women this way?
So the quote I had in my video was like to showcase this like classic narratives of a space in a not only in like a city, but in a space, and how women and men are placed in a space. And this is why I wanted to also create this video, because of course the garments show, of course, discriminatory elements, of course, because it's like, okay, colorism and classism, and it's really gendered because the patterns are really gendered. And then also I wanted to showcase that also has, of course, also empowering moments, because you see women on the streets are mobile. So I really wanted also to see this like both, as it has both sides to it. And this is why I had this quote of like this quote of like what gender is mobile and what gender is not mobile, and yeah, to disrupt this notion, I guess.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for the question. Do you have another question? Yes.
I guess one question is you're often talking about teams and like working with other people.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just curious how it is to work with a team and how do you establish those links. And I think someone previously asked like how do you get your ideas across? But my question is really like how do you surround yourself with these people in order to make those cycles? Yeah.
I think.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I think mostly from because I studied at art school and my peers and my friends, and then somehow we come up together and wanted to create something together, and somehow this. I think this is the first step to do like something together and work with also as a team. So this is also, but in a professional like sense, team can be, for example, for the costume, it's not like the chosen team I choose, like they choose me and then I have to work with them, but mostly it's also from like connections or from people I know, and then they have like some kind of trust. So it's really depends on the like motivation or what kind of project it is. So yeah, mostly from like get inspired from my friends and from the peers next to you. So yeah.
And I wonder if I add another question to it, what are you like inspired by? Like what's your inspiration? Literature, music, friends, nature.
I think it's so the notion of inspiration. I feel really like pressured by, because I feel like most of the times my work is on the computer writing proposals, and I don't really get a lot of like, I feel like since like while working I really have to do a lot of paperwork, and like my reality is not very inspiring maybe, but I think it, so this is like the reality. But to get inspired, I think for example, like really going to my relatives and talking with them, and going back to Vietnam or some, and also like talking to people and get to know, like working on collaborative works, and they show also their work. So this is my first like inspiration, but I feel like since like even more having to deal with like how to like get the financial and stuff, and it's mostly like a lot of paperwork, and it's not that I really have to work for like getting inspired, like going to museums, going to this, and sometimes you don't have time for it. So it's really like sometimes just I have to really push myself to do the inspiring, to get to inspiring work, I guess. Yeah.
You have another question? Yes.
What's next for you?
I think what's next for me is hoping that my work is good enough that in the future I'm financially stable and I can live with my work. This is the dream of mine, I think. Yeah. So, but it's like a nice. But I feel like with fine arts, I get a lot of good comments, and I really get a lot of like, for example, I go to I exhibit in an exhibition, and then there is always like a something coming up from this event or from this thing. So it was always like went smoothly, and I hope it will be like even more and bigger and successful, I guess. So yeah.
But actually, on the notion, I think that's quite interesting, because you guys are, somewhere in the beginning and middle of your studies. But how would you describe, how did your reality change since graduating? You already described there's a lot of paperwork to do. There's a lot of not fun stuff to do if you want to try to make your living as an artist. Yeah, could you hard facts, so to speak, like what's the biggest change that happened for you?
So I didn't, I never applied, like while I was studying, I never applied to fundings. I never had the courage. Nobody told me like, hey, your work is so good, apply to fundings. Like I was always like, oh, there's always like the top like students, and they are always getting like everything, and I was always like not had the courage, I guess. But then after like yeah, but after my graduation, I started to applying to fundings, and most of the fundings didn't get, like I had to apply hundreds and maybe I get one or something. So I think really you have to try to be as early as possible to write down your project and have to do the paperwork and then to apply to fundings, because I feel like it's like how it works, because there's so many people already with like so long like CV with like they doing like this award and that, and you feel a little bit not motivated because they are have so much experience. But I can tell you that it needs time, but it will work out if you do it, like apply a lot. So this is just my
true. And me, being a couple of decades further, the hustle continues. I can tell you. So I'm still applying for certain projects, and then maybe a fifth get through. No, so this is you know what it's like. I have a stack of unrealized project that is like this high, and I have a stack of project I realized. But I mean, what you described, that continues in the field of work that I guess all of you guys will engage in one way or another, that we're engaging in. Another question from you. Yes. So
yeah, I think he was already like okay. Before wanted to say something. Sorry.
Then we know the order.
I stumbled across the word now two times in your answer to me and then to Lukas, which I didn't hear before in your lecture, which is the word good. And I think that's like one of the big questions, unanswered questions, like what is a good artwork to you?
I think it's good artwork is when you work it. I think a good artwork is for me when after 5 years and I looking over the artwork and I'm still like thinking, hey, it's actually a good work, because normally like after like working it for so long time, you're like getting tired of this work because you don't want to see it anymore. But then I think a good work for me is when I'm looking back into this and I really can see like the moments I'm working on it, like okay, like the moments I created the sculpture, the moments I went for research, and so this is like for me a good artwork, I guess, for my like I'm really proud and I'm really like have a connection to it.
Yeah. And there was a question from you.
Yeah. Could you say like approximately how long you work on one project?
I think it really depends on the project. So mostly, I mean, there's sometimes like, okay, like sometimes it's only like 3 weeks and I have to do something really quick because sometimes there's like a really like spontaneous opportunity, but then sometimes it can be like two years or 3 years. So the motorbike sculpture thing, it's also like ongoing for me because I really wanted to also elevate, like working on this again, maybe later, and it can be like you working on this and then you create a new version on, or like a, of it. So it can be any time, so, yeah.
Yes, please.
Maybe it's not so related, but I read that you had a problem with a company who took your artwork 2 years ago. How do you deal with it in those days, and how do you can like save your artwork from getting stolen, or your ideas even in your team? Do you have like feeling of that somebody can take it again, or how do you deal with it?
I think it's the reality is that if you don't have like a company, or you're not like big company, and you cannot be like have like the lawyers, you cannot protect like really your artwork, because you also need to like you have to also like make it public for the people to see, and you have to like share your portfolio. So I think it's not possible to like protect yourself, but just have like so in this sense it's like not possible. If you have like lawyers, you have like a team, like, and you're like basically by yourself and just hoping that it's like warned. But then what you can do is take this as an experience and then try to work with like I mean, like, I don't know how to, like, each case is of course different, but I think it's of course like depends on the case, and then how you, like, I think you have to learn from the process, and like cannot, like, I'm really like cannot expect that they will like say something, but sometimes it works out. Maybe like try to like talk to them or like talk to the companies, but yeah, I think it's always like will be this problem in here. So yeah.
How did it end in your case? Did they apologize? Or?
I think it's I was really transparent with the whole thing. So like what you got to read, it's like how it ended. So it's basically didn't end it like how I wanted, but in the sense that I took this as a like as an experience, I guess, because I really didn't expect anything that it will like blow up like this, and it was like a really scary, because would I have known that it would be like this, I would never like do it, because I was like really like in the middle of like a tunnel, and there was so many like messages. But then I'm also really glad that I did it, because I was so like it was such a personal work to me that it felt really like something was like tear out from my body. It felt like a how would say, like a out of body experience when I see this. So I cannot explain it to you. It's not, yeah, it's like when something is so personal. So I think I'm glad I did it, but I think it didn't end it how I wanted. But I'm glad that I still can work how I'm like, can still work with I'm happy about. Yeah.
Great, maybe two last questions. You have one more?
Maybe without playing too much like devil's advocate, but I think we all like get inspired somewhere. And sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's very blatant, like with you. But also in like an age of like the kind of Virgil 3% design rule and stuff, where you kind of take a lot and combine a lot. Is there for you like a clear line where it's inspiration and it's stealing?
Yes, I think it's totally, I think, for example, cultural appropriation or something that it's, has a deep meaning towards, I think it has to do a lot of power structures. So I think you have to really like to see how the power structure is, like who's stealing from whom. And I'm not against like, hey, this is like when, I don't know, like, I'm not an advocate for okay, like I'm not a person who you can ask like, hey, what is like correct to steal or like copy, or what is like this. But I think you like, if you're yourself in this position and really feel that hire like a powerful like company steal some like a small designers, of course you know that it's like wrong thing to do, and it's also with context of how they approached you, how it's not like it was a long process, I just mean. So yeah, it depends on the context. Yeah.
And the last question.
Okay. After your bad experience with this company, would you be open to work with another big company in the future, and under what conditions, or you are totally close and willing to be always independent with your work? Or
I think it depends on the budget. I think it's simply as this. So if they have like, of course, like can have the freedom, I can do whatever I want, and have like giving me like trust in a, like there will be probably contracts, and if the contract is right, then we can talk about it. But it really depends on the company, and I'm also glad that's why I'm going towards more like a fine arts field, because it's not that dependent on companies. Of course, it's dependent on like fundings of big companies, but it's not that like in fashion design that it's so close together. So yeah.
Amazing the questions, guys. I'm really proud of you and I'm really happy. So many great questions. So we have this ritual here for you. It's a new ritual, but then we asked one last question. It's a final piece of advice. So what advice would you give all these becoming fashion designers, architects, artists, researchers, cultural producers?
I think the thing that you study doesn't need to be like the final like practice you will go in the end, and sometimes there will be people who don't believe in you. I mean, it's so super cheesy right now, but but somehow
they're always cheesy at the end, but that's why they're so good.
But in the end, it will be, for example, with the motorbike sculpture, I was really struggling because I feel like, okay, maybe it's not something that people are interested. It's like so niche and like so in Vietnamese context, but then like somehow like after my graduation I really felt like, hey, it's really important, so sometimes it needs time to really digest the full project. So it's like
so warm applause for Chami. So thank you so much for being with us here today. It was great, and thank you for all the talks. In 2 weeks, we will see each other again, and there we have Ariel Ephraim Ashbel with us. He is a performance maker, so he kind of does also very much a cut-up practice, including installation, sculptures, performance, music, dance, and he's going to be here with us, same location on Monday in 2 weeks. And did anyone already follow my first assignment of speaking to someone that you don't know today? You did? Yes. It's number 1. There's more to come. So kind of use the moment now, approach someone, and see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Oh, and all the lectures of last semester are now online on our newly started YouTube channel. It's called Post Protocol. Thanks to Leon.